Hi everyone, Zach here. It is Thursday, August 6th, 2020, and we are back on the bamboo farm in a little bit of a different place right now. We are actually on the old field that we have just right next door, adjacent to the new plants that we have been following. So check it out here. So these plants were planted in March of 2019. They are about 1 year ahead of the new plants. So these plants kind of give you a good idea of the size of them right now, and how they look is kind of where we expect to be about this time next year. So I'll talk a little bit about these plants, just tell you a few things about them. One is that we planted these without plastic. So we have a little bit more weed pressure over here right now than we do with the small ones, although you'll see that the plastic on the small ones is not a perfect fix for it with the weeds that we have out here. But I'll just show you here just kind of the down low. Certainly not anything that is a tragedy to these plants or anything like that, but there is a little bit of weed pressure down at the clumps, in particular in areas that we cannot get the mower. Another thing about these plants is obviously they're much bigger. They're still kind of bushy, but we are seeing with these plants about anywhere between 4 to 6 shoots come up out of the ground. We did in the later springtime. Now we're well into summer, and actually this time of the year, August, September, October, and then even by November, the shoots and things that are coming up out of the ground will have branches, and we'll really see the difference in the plants. So a lot of things right now are happening in the spring as well, happening below the surface, the root zone, getting ready to support the growth that comes later in the year. And so these plants, we've seen them put out as many as 4 to 6 shoots at one time, and that's definitely leaps and bounds over the small plants, which are only doing like 1 to 2. And that's exactly what these plants did last year. These plants did about 1 to 2, I would say, some of them more, but just the difference, the exponential growth that these plants have, really where the more leaves that the plants have, the more photosynthesis that they can do, the more energy they generate, and then the more growth that they have based off of that. So although these plants are by no means mature, they are farther along, and it is noticeable. So I'm actually standing in the spacing of these plants is 8 by 12, the same as the new field, and I'm standing in a 12-foot aisle. And as you can see, there is you cannot walk there without brushing up against a bamboo branch. And the 8-foot spacing is all pretty much not even able to be navigated. So that's obviously a good sign. That's what we expect. We're gonna have these 8-foot sections pretty much not able to be navigated, but then the 12-foot, what's gonna happen with all these branches and these leaves and things is the branches that are currently taking up the whole aisle, that are low to the ground, like a human cannot walk there, all of that's going to be raised up, and we expect that to happen in the next year with these plants. That the new culms and things that are coming up, so right now the plants are about anywhere between 5 and 7 feet tall, maybe, that the culms that are coming up are anywhere between 12 to 18 feet tall probably. And when the branches come off of those, it's going to create that same canopy effect, it's just going to be taller, and we'll be able to walk underneath with shade. And that's a huge milestone for the plants, because again, that's more leaves, more energy, and it's also, when they start shading things out in that type of with that type of magnitude, that's really when the weeds and the vegetation underneath just cannot survive. So that's a fantastic time for us and for the plants. The other thing that happens is the leaves drop off of these plants and drop to the ground. They dissolve basically into, or emit, a substance called humus, which is spelled like hummus but is pronounced humus, and it's an acidic substance that the plant is immune to. However, other vegetation, it basically acts like an herbicide, and it will kill the other weeds and grasses underneath the plant. Now, it takes a lot of leaves, and when I mean a lot, it's hard to really put a number to that, but easily hundreds and hundreds of leaves to be on the ground and for an extended period of time, to have enough humus effect. So in order for that to happen, the plant has to have that many leaves to drop, and right now even these plants really don't. So it's definitely a more mature thing, but these plants are well on their way. Even the small plants, they will get here, of course, and then they'll get to the next stages. So the plant drops them in these orange. That's the orange leaves that you see amongst all the green. The orange is the plant dropping that leaf. So let me show you what the branching looks like, because it's really easy to see on these bigger culms. So this is what branching looks like. Off of this culm, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I mean, probably a dozen shoots there just on one node. And then this particular culm has got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, probably 8, 7 for sure. There's one I can't see, maybe down below, nodes. So that's let's see, if 7 times, if there's 12 there, that would be 84 shoots, basically branches that are coming off of this. Now, all of those are going to branch out, and then even those will have like sub branches that produce more leaves. So it's very easy to see how it's just this massive exponential growth. And the first year, where the small plants are, a little bit slower. The plants don't have enough leaves to create enough energy to do this very, very fast growth. Second year, where these plants are, they've got a little bit more. Third year is even better, and just gets better and better after that until maturity. So these plants will reach maturity when they are about 60 to anywhere between 60 and 100 feet tall or so, and the diameter of the culms is roughly 6 inches. So that's a very large plant that we're talking about, and that's the reason for the spacing that we have. So yeah, I'll give you another look here. I'll just walk for a second through these little bit older, more mature plants. You can see there's still a lot of mowing and things that we have to do down this aisle. Take a look at this down here. The last thing I'll mention about these plants, and this is the same thing that we're going to see on the small field, is there's a bit of an ebb and flow to the growth, in that Some plants grow sideways out really far and not very tall initially. Some plants will grow very tall and not very wide. Some plants have tall and wide and they're just giant bushes. And some plants are a little bit further behind. Like we have this little plant here. That plant there obviously has got a little bit more weed pressure because it's not quite as big. However, the plant will win the battle against the weeds. There may be some maintenance that we have to do for some of the ones that are not quite catching on as fast, but the plant will win the battle. And a lot of these, the differences in the growth of a lot of these, they're the same genus and species, and they will level out as the years go by. So, alrighty, that's it here for the old plants. Let's go over and take a look at the new plants, and I'll see you back in a bit. So it's been about 2 months, 60 days since our last update in June, and check them out. So still pretty short plants, pretty small plants. We're getting a little bit bushier, but one thing actually we're seeing out here is the weed pressure is really coming in. I would say that's probably one of the biggest changes between June and now over the last 2 months has been the weeds, and that is unfortunately the plastic. It's 1.5 mil plastic, and it seems that it's just not enough. The weeds out here are just too strong. So we've got some weed pressure going on. In some areas the plastic is still doing pretty good, holding back the grasses and vegetation and weeds, but in some areas it's not as much. So we've the thing is, we kind of know what we're dealing with right now, because this is about the same thing as the older plants looked last year. And I mean, you saw those, they're not doing too bad. So, but yeah, check it out here. I'll just show you. So not, completely just engulfed, obviously, in weeds and grasses, which we have seen before, but there's definitely a little bit of weed pressure at the bases. And we've got a couple things going on that we're gonna try on the old field first, and we're actually pretty confident that we're gonna be able to smother out a lot of these weeds. So, but again, the problem with the weeds is even these plants, right, if the weeds are down low at the bases and there's not a lot of competition for sunlight, where the bamboo's already got some leaves that are kind of up and out there. One of the problems is that we have these poly lines, right, that run down the length of the field next to the plant, and there are emitters and things that are attached in there to water the plants. And as you could imagine, on a plant like this, it's a little bit more difficult to determine or to confirm visually just by looking at it. When the water's running, it's a little bit more difficult to see and make sure that the emitter is not clogged or that there's some other problem going on. If the poly gets hit by a mower, because now also with the weeds, we really don't have a good visual on the poly. So if the poly gets hit by a mower or something, then it's going to obviously have like a kind of cracks or splits, and that just leaks water out all over, which, we do have drainage and things that help mitigate that, but it's just kind of unnecessary, or they are necessary now, but it's just an extra sort of maintenance thing. So But yeah, the plants today, they are actually in particular a little bit more, they are a little bit orange, or some leaves on the plants are more orange. And the orange is a very natural process of the plant dropping its leaves. As we talked about with the older plants, they are doing that all over the place. Take a look at this plant here. So you see, not every leaf is orange. It is, I don't know how the plant chooses, but probably the older, the older leaves, the older growth is actually what goes out first, and then the new growth comes in and sort of takes its spot. And those leaves are dropping to the ground. Now, it's not enough. It's not enough volume, and there's obviously really little to no shade being produced, and so these plants are a long way off from that canopy, but they'll get there for sure. They'll definitely get there. So, well, yeah. So kind of a continuation of what we saw in June. Where June we were starting to see some of the shoots come out. We still got some great shoots coming out of these plants. Check out one just down here. So more shoots is good. The shoots grow up, they become culms, they start branching out, and then that branching produces more leaves, or they create more leaves on the branches, more energy, and that's how we work our way into the plant becoming bigger and bushier, and it just builds on that. So it's it's an exponential type of growth, really. So besides that, it's been a pretty dry summer so far. August and September here, we really are, I don't think Florida has really ever seen a dry September, but we have had a fairly dry June, July, and this is just the beginning of August. But May, June, July, we had some thunderstorms, we did have the rains, but probably not as much as we've definitely seen in the past. So that is a factor that contributes to the growth of the plants, because irrigation water is more or less like survival, as more than it is the plants are thriving and loving irrigation water. So they thrive and they love the rainwater, and the irrigation water is what bridges the gap between rains. So sometimes we had gone as long as a week and a half to 2 weeks without any rain out here, and we have 90 temperatures in the 90s, and just sun all day long. So, and the nights are in the 70s usually, like mid 70s probably. The only one advantage we have, we're maybe 10 miles from the coast, 12 miles, maybe 10 or 12 miles, and we do get a sea breeze that comes in the afternoons pretty frequently, and that kind of helps to drop the temperature a little bit in the afternoons. But yeah, so it's been a little bit drier, I would say, and that is a factor in the growth of the plants. But we're still looking really good. Check out this here. So we, in early June, I think I talked about, we had just a torrential 7-inch downpour of rain. We haven't had anything like that since. The tropical storm, we had a tropical storm, Isaias or something like that, Isaias. That came through on basically Saturday, Sunday time. Today is Thursday. So it came through Saturday, Sunday. We had 2.5 inches of rain from that. And we haven't had to water since yesterday. We got another 2 inches. So we've had 4.5 inches of rain out here. The plants are by no means flooded. Our drainage system is handling the water just as it is supposed to. So that's all great. And actually, I think the plants are really liking the rainwater. But yeah, the tropical storm, we probably had tropical storm force winds out here for a little bit sustained. We saw just a little bit of stress on the plants probably from that, but like they were just a little bit tinted yellow color the day after the storm. But it looks like they're definitely bouncing back, and there's really not much of a factor overall. Just 2.5 inches of rain. So and then, like I said, we had a thunderstorm come through yesterday that dropped 2 inches. So but that's a good rain. We haven't had to water since that came through, and like I said, I think the plants are really liking it. We're very close. Like this month, we're going to pick up all the rest of the stakes that we use to plant the plants in the ground with. We'll come through, and I mean, any plant, there's really no plant out here, I don't even think, maybe even by now, but certainly after the next 2 weeks or so, that will need the stakes anymore. They've got other growth going on, shoots and stuff coming out that when the wind blows, the plant doesn't fall over, and it just doesn't need the stake. So it'll look a little bit different with those down, because they're kind of like just ugly gray, brittle stakes. So it'll look a little greener, and I like it. I like it when the stakes come out. It's a good sort of victory for us in terms of where the plants are and able to hold their own officially. So we've done that already with some, but it'll be the rest of the field this month. Besides that, I did mention that we've been talking about this liquid fertilizer, and I'll show you that and how we send that through the irrigation system. And then we also did a granular fertilizer out here. It's a 90-day release. Same thing we did on the big field. And the reason to do the granular is the liquid, the nitrogen in the liquid is more or less taken up and absorbed, and it's also released by the fertilizer instantly. So the lasting effect is only like 1 to 2 weeks. And to bridge the gap between in order to give the plants a constant bank, almost a constant release of nitrogen and nutrients, is why we did the 90-day release. So it's just bridging the gap between liquid fertilizer injections. So that's another reason for the granular. We just did a quarter cup per plant. That's how much we did. So yeah, the plants are doing well. Like I said, so we've got a little bit of the weed pressure. I think we're gonna have a way of dealing with that. If not, we kind of know what happens, and we will just manage that to the best we can. The reason why we don't, like, say, Zach, why don't you just go in there and clean out the weeds, right? Well, the problem with that is one person or two people, it would take easily 2 weeks just to do every single plant, and that would just be like cutting it down, right? And you don't want to go in with a weed eater, because there are shoots and things that you cannot see inside the grasses and weeds that the bamboo has going on, that you don't want to hit that with the weed eater or something and just cut off, make the plant take a step back. So we want to, the way that it would be cleaned out was basically by hand. And if we were to have 8 or 10 people out here doing it, which we can organize that certainly, just the cost of that, and then the fact that it's all going to come back in literally 10 to 14 days. It'll be back just like this. So that's why we don't really do anything with it. We would spend probably $1,000 or more easily, and it would just be back in the next 10 to 14 days. So it just doesn't make sense financially, and the plant is still, the plant's okay. So so that's that. Yeah, we've got small bushiness. I remember. So we're on the west side of the field, towards the east end of the field. We installed some new drainage pipes that actually connect into a canal that's over there. And in some of these just really big, heavy downpours, particularly the one we had like 7 inches long ago, or a few months ago, where the plants were even newer, we did lose some plants due to that rain. Not even really because they were in standing water, some of them, but just because they're so young and so small that and our soil is very heavy. It's loamy, heavy soil, so it doesn't just drain off, instantly, and it also doesn't sink through the soil like a sandy soil would. So the plant's just too young and too small and too fragile to handle something like that, that type of stress. And there's a scattered instances like that in some other areas, but the east end is probably got it the worst. So we do have some plants to replace down there. The plants are coming in very soon. We've already ordered them, and I'm actually going to try a different sort of way before we just put them in the ground, because we are coming into hurricane season now, and August and September, I definitely expect some heavy rains to come. So I'll make sure these plants are babied a little bit more and get strong when they come out into the field and they're ready for the weather. I expect these plants, just like how we had last year, this is about how they looked, and more around. So we'll be back. The next update, unless something happens in between that's really, really big, I'll definitely put out an update, but I'll be back to give you an update in 2 months, which is going to be October, the first week of October. And definitely expect these plants to start showing some different signs. All the shoots and things that are, some of them you can't even really see right now, are going to branch out. It's going to become a little bit bushier. October, and then even into like December update would be, you start seeing the effects of all the rain and the branching. So alrighty, that's it now for the small plants. I'm gonna go over to the well and show you what's going on with all that over there, and I will see you in a bit. Hi everyone, we are at the well area now, and I'm going to show you our liquid fertilizer and just a little bit about the watering in the well here. So this tote behind me that's covered in a tarp is our liquid fertilizer. Check it out here. Up underneath here is the handle that we use, or a little sort of spigot that we made coming out of it to dispense the fertilizer. This tote is a 275-gallon tote, and it's right at the time of this recording, it's probably has about 260 gallons in it. So we dispense this fertilizer by just opening the handle back here, turning on the little spigot, and it comes out through this hose. The end of that hose, we pour it into this tank, this transfer tank, which has measurements on it. That's how we can tell how much liquid fertilizer we want to inject into the system. It's got this hose connected to it at the bottom, and that hose we connect to a transfer pump, and eventually pump it into here, which is this is a check valve, and it goes into the system and down, and that is how the liquid fertilizer makes its way into the irrigation and then out into the field. So the liquid fertilizer is the special thing about it is that it contains microbes in a stabilized solution, or the microbes are stabilized in this solution and can stay there for many, many months, as long as well, one thing that helps tremendously in keeping the microbes alive is that we keep it out of the sunlight, and we do that by having the tarp over it. So the microbes are extremely useful to our plants because the microbes help break down nutrients and organic matter in the soil that the plant may not be able to break down on its own. So it helps break those down and make those nutrients available to the plant. Now, microbes would be generally available in a normal ecosystem with plants and animals that are being born and dying in that constant process. The microbes do develop. However, we have just cultivated or we have disked that field, so we sort of turned up all the grass, and that generally has a negative impact on the microbes when you tear up the vegetation and make raw dirt. So what we're doing is taking microbes in this solution and trying to inject them back into the soil, basically, and create that population. So this is a process that generally takes many, many years if the ecosystem was to do it on its own, and we're hoping to shorten that down to 1 year, maybe less. So right now it's been less than 6 months, so we haven't really seen much effects yet of the microbes, but we look forward in the next few months to the next year. We look forward to seeing an increase in the healthiness of the plants and just the overall growth rate. So that's the liquid fertilizer and the microbes. And then just to talk a little bit about fertilizer, the three values that we generally talk about when we talk about fertilizer is NPK, it's nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. And the nitrogen is the first number, then phosphorus, then potassium. And that is a measurement of the percentages, or sometimes in parts per million, of those nutrients in that fertilizer. So this liquid fertilizer is a 602. It means it has 6% nitrogen, 0% phosphorus, and 2% potassium. And the reason why it has 0% phosphorus is because Florida, it's made to be used in Florida, and Florida generally has higher phosphorus content in the soil anyways. It's just the way that Florida soil generally is. And we have tested our soil, and we do have plenty of phosphorus. The only caveat to that would be whether it's phosphorus, whether it's phosphate or phosphite, which we generally do not get when we do a soil test. If it's generally, the plant likes to use phosphate more than phosphite, but either way, we have plenty of phosphorus in our soil, and the microbes that we are putting in are helping to break that down and help the plant digest it. So then the nitrogen is what gives the green color to most of the vegetation that we have here on the earth. And nitrogen is that green color, and then brown, the brown is carbon. So nitrogen, green, carbon, brown. It's also food for the plant. Then the last is potassium. Potassium is nutrients for the plant, and it helps the stomata on the leaves open up and absorb more sunlight and create more photosynthesis, which in turn creates more energy for the plant. So those are our three things. And then the other thing about fertilizers is you generally like a fertilizer that contains what are called micronutrients, which are all the other things like zinc, iron, boron, magnesium, sulfur, all these other different nutrients. The plant could easily have a micronutrient deficiency, is what we call it, and it's generally indicated by some sign on the leaves usually. could be other things as well, but you can generally tell micronutrient deficiencies on the leaves, and as well as the plants will grow better when they have the micronutrients that they need. So we like to have those NPK values down, and then as well as a good micronutrient package. So that is the again, that's the liquid fertilizer and how we get it into the system. The rest is pretty simple over there, just a pump, irrigation timer controller, things like that. And yeah, that's a little bit about fertilizer. So thanks so much for watching this video. If you have any other questions, please let me know. If not, I will see you on the next one. Thank you.